Heads up, this is going to be the first video that includes major spoilers for the 1.6 update, because it added a bunch of new ways of making money as well as improved existing money makers, which is good because, wow, you need a lot of money now. Look at the prices of those hats. If you haven't seen my previous moneymaker video, I would recommend watching it because we are going to be comparing these new methods with the old methods. For this video, to start, I'm going to talk about new mechanics added in the update, and then I'll spend some time going over the moneymakers I talked about in that previous video to see how they've been buffed or nerfed. Before I get into it, I want to thank everyone who's been contributing to the Stardew Valley wiki for working hard to catalog all of the information for 1.6. I want to give another special thanks to Blade for all of his code deep dives, giving us a better understanding of how exactly everything works. Now, let's start with what I think is most interesting. Fish smokers are a new artisan machine that allow you to smoke your fish for the price of 1 coal. Smoking the fish doubles its price, which is nice, but that's not why it's so good. See, the smoked fish counts both as a fish and an artisan good. So the 1.5 times multiplier from the angler profession and the 1.4 times multiplier from the artisan profession both apply. Altogether, that makes a 4.2 times multiplier for any fish you put in the fish smoker. Let's put this into perspective. You go fishing and catch an iridium quality legend, the most expensive fish in the game at 10,000 gold. Put it in the smoker and that's 42,000 gold for one fish. But that's a legendary fish, so what? Let's look at a smoked lava eel. Just a regular one, they reproduce every 5 days in the fish pond, easily farmable. It will sell for 2,940 gold. This makes lava eel ponds a 588 gold a day machine, not counting any of the roe you get. So combine the fish smoker with tons of the other buffs that fishing got, such as targeted fish bait, the advanced iridium rod, and of course, bobber styles, and you've got a pretty great moneymaker. The other major artisan machine we got is the Dehydrator. It can either take 5 fruits or 5 mushrooms to turn them into dried mushrooms or dried fruit, which sells for 7.5 times the base price plus 25 gold. To put it into simpler terms, it's a 1.5 times multiplier. As far as the fruits go, you may notice that this isn't as good of a deal as kegs or preserves jars. But in the case of crops that produce a ton of fruit, like blueberries or cranberries, there's a case to be made if you couldn't possibly have the time to put them all in preserves jars or kegs one at a time. It only takes 1 day for the dehydrator to process, so it's good for getting rid of fruit fast. But that's not where it shines. In the case of mushrooms, this is the only way to turn them into an artisan product to get that juicy 1.4 multiplier from the artisan profession. But where could you possibly get enough mushrooms to make it consistent? May I introduce to you the mushroom log. Unlocked at level 4 foraging, it produces mushrooms every 4 days. The more trees you have in a 7x7 square around them, the higher the chance for you to get more mushrooms. It maxes out at 5 mushrooms, which are guaranteed if you have 10 nearby trees. As for the type of mushroom, that's determined by the type of trees nearby. Pine trees give chanterelles, maple trees have a 10% chance for purple mushrooms and 90% chance for red mushrooms, and the late game mystic trees give a 100% chance for purple mushrooms. And for the quality of the mushrooms, it's determined both by the nearby tree count and by the amount of trees that have moss, but this is negligible if you plan on using them to make dried mushrooms. So an early game setup would have stumps surrounded by pine trees, as chanterelles outsell the other tree types. And late game, you'd eventually build up mystic trees. They're one of the new mastery rewards, we'll go over them a bit later. So the calculations. In 4 days, we have 5 guaranteed chanterelles. With the artisan profession in consideration, when turned into dried mushrooms, they'll have a 2.1 times multiplier plus 5 gold. So each fully stacked mushroom log will give 1,705 gold worth of mushrooms every time it produces, or 426.25 gold per day. For reference, an ancient fruit makes around 75 gold a day. It takes a bit of setup, but these blow just about everything else out of the water. Oh, and if you're using mystic trees, that goes up to 662.5 gold a day. And rainy days make the logs produce a day sooner, but I'm not calculating all that. Now I'd like to talk about the mystic trees themselves. Before we get too into it, this is a pretty late game item. If you haven't heard of the mastery system before, it's unlocked after reaching level 10 in all skills. You then need to get 10,000 of any type of experience to choose a skill to get mastery in. And each mastery gives you a couple of new crafting recipes and one special effect. The crafting recipe for mystic seeds is in the foraging category. While they can be used for mushroom logs, they can also be tapped to produce mystic syrup once every 7 to 8 days. Mystic syrup sells for 1,000 gold. There's two possible boosts to this. First, the tapper profession at level 10 foraging increases the sale price by 25%, and using a heavy tapper unlocked from the walnut room brings the day count down to 4. So in an ideal setup, each tapped mystic tree will earn 312.5 gold per day, which is about 5 times as much as if you use the same strategy for maple syrup from maple trees. And you can still use these tapped trees to influence your mushroom logs, so a foraging-based farm could probably do pretty well for itself. So maybe you don't want to mine, you don't want to farm, fish, forage, fight. What can you do? You can go on a scavenger hunt, and no, I'm not kidding. For yet another mastery reward, this time in farming, you get this Statue of Blessings recipe. When crafted, it'll give you a random blessing out of 7 possibilities. The blessing I want to look at is the blessing of the butterfly. Bizarrely, it will spawn a butterfly somewhere, and when you find it, you'll either get a prismatic shard or 0.5% of your total earned gold up to 50,000. To get that 50,000, you will have needed to earn 10 million gold. So yeah, it's clearly very late game, but you just walk around and find a butterfly, boom, 50,000 gold. And if you get the prismatic shard, yeah, you won't get much money, but it's still a prismatic shard. They have plenty of uses. So as showcased in the previous money-making video, pigs are the go-to animal if you want to make money. But as of 1.6, sheep might be a contender too, due to a couple of different changes. First, using higher quality wool has a larger chance to yield double cloth in the loom. Iridium quality wool now guarantees 2 cloth, up from the 50% chance in 1.5. Second, the addition of the animal cracker, which is yet another mastery reward, this time for farming. Any animal it's given to will double its produce, excluding pigs, because they're already so good. So the humble sheep, which can produce wool every single day when at full happiness, and if you have the shepherd profession at level 10 farming, can now produce 2 iridium wool, which produces 2 cloth each. Now, unfortunately, if you have the shepherd profession, you can't also have the artisan profession. You will, however, have the rancher profession, which increases the price of cloth by 20%. So, 4 cloth at 564 gold each, and you're making 2,256 gold a day per sheep. Now, we're comparing against pigs, which at full happiness will earn you about 4,500 gold a day. But considering sheep can be bought for half the price, they still work in winter and on rainy days, that's not a bad alternative. And truffles can't be tailored into a party hat. Yet another win for cloth. I think that just about does it for new viable moneymakers, but there's a couple of old methods that need reevaluating. And I think I know the one that y'all want to hear about. So the sapling sale price got nerfed from 500 gold down to 250 gold. So they're worse now, right? Wrong. Another change that they got is that they will now drop the sapling if you chop them down after planting them. The reason people sold them in the first place is because the amount of gold you got from selling them was higher than the amount of gold you got from harvesting the tea from it for a month, which comes out to 350 gold. But guess what you can do now? Once you craft them and plant them, it'll take 20 days to grow. They don't need to be watered or anything. They grow on their own. You can then harvest the tea leaves for 1 season and then chop them down and sell them. Now you made 600 gold. That's more than 500 gold. That's what we in the business call a buff. That's right, I'm saying tea saplings got buffed. And guess what? You could leave them for another season. Now you made 950 gold each. Yes, you need to harvest them, but it takes like 10 seconds to get the whole group of them, and I think that's more than worth it. Fish ponds also got a buff through the animal cracker, doubling the production of anything they make. So previously, the most profitable fish pond, the lava eel pond, made about 1,053 gold a day from roe only. That is if you aged it with the artisan profession. The new cave jelly has been added to its item pool, so the chance for roe is slightly decreased now, but with an animal cracker, the profit is still almost double what it was before at 2,058 gold a day. And remember, every 5 days you can fish up a lava eel, smoke it, and sell it for even more money. There is a buff to mining money making. As a quick reminder, with the blacksmith profession at level 10 mining, you can sell iridium bars for 1,500 gold and radioactive bars for 4,500 gold, making Skull Cavern deep dives really good for money. There's no specific calculations to be made because it's so luck-based, but there are a few buffs to be had, mostly with the mastery rewards. The Heavy Furnace is a new crafting recipe that acts as a better furnace. It produces 5 bars at once at the price of 25 ore and only 3 coal, so you're saving 2 pieces of coal. It also has a 50% chance to produce an extra bar, which I had to test myself because it's not included on the wiki, adding 20% to whatever profit you would have made, plus a little pocket change from the coal. There's also the Statue of the Dwarf King, which has a chance to give you 1 of 5 different powers. Now, if I were to choose out of all of these, the +1 ore when mining would seem to yield the most profit. On average, if you're already running the miner profession, which you should, you're getting 3 ore per node. Bump that up to 4 on average, and that's a 33% increase in profit. So considering both of these, you'll be making around 50% more money from selling your bars. Whether it's gold, iridium, or radioactive, they all apply. So there was a buff to farming, oddly enough, but it's super specific and niche. There's an item in the game called Raisins now. You get them from drying grapes in the Dehydrator. If you put these in a Junimo hut, there's a chance that the Junimos will double harvest whatever they're harvesting. I actually had to do the calculation for this myself because I couldn't find what percentage chance they have to double harvest was. And I've done enough testing to feel confident saying it's about a 15% chance. Which sounds insignificant, but remember, that's a 15% buff to one of the best money makers in the game already. That's 15% more starfruit wine you can make. And if you're wondering, 1 raisin will last for a week in the Junimo hut, so you don't need a lot to keep them going forever. And to close us out, we have the one true nerf: clay farming. If you didn't know, getting clay or winter forageables out of the ground follows a pattern, and it wasn't truly random. So you could hoe this pattern out after finding clay and get clay almost every single time. This could easily get you around 2,000 gold from a day's work, which doesn't sound like much, but it's crazy when you consider you can pull it off on day 1. It has been removed from the base settings of 1.6, but if you choose legacy randomization, you can still do it. And that just about does it for any changes to money making. In general, nothing that was super profitable before got nerfed, and in the end game, when you start to need millions of gold, you have a lot more options, which is exactly what I wanted to see. Not everyone wants to have an ancient fruit wine farm to grind out perfection, which, by the way, that's less annoying now too, because you can harvest all of the ancient fruit with an iridium scythe. Quick mention, there's probably many other ways that you can use the other items to make a better profit too. I just picked out the ones that seemed particularly powerful. I hope you're enjoying the 1.6 update. I'll have more guides around it coming out soon. Thank you for watching, and good night.